Don't forget to subscribe and let me know in the comments which country you're watching from and what time it is right now where you are. Thanks. I always take the same route home. That's how this all started. I think just a pattern I fell into. I work evening shifts at a diner in the city, usually clocking out around 10:30 p.m. I grab my coat, sling my bag over my shoulder, and start the 20-minute walk to my apartment. I don't drive and I don't like taking the train that late, so walking became my routine. It's not a bad neighborhood, quiet. A little empty after dark, but I never felt unsafe. Not until that night. It started small. A man walking a few steps behind me. He wasn't doing anything strange, just walking. Same side of the street, not close enough to brush past, but not far enough to ignore either. I glanced over my shoulder, and he stopped, pretending to tie his shoe. I brushed it off as coincidence. Even when I saw him again the next night, same place, same distance, same black jacket and gray cap. Just to test it, I casually crossed the street. He crossed too. Still, I didn't panic. People walk home the same way sometimes, right? That's what I told myself. But on the third night, I took a different route. Instead of cutting through Oak Street like usual, I turned down 17th and looped an extra block. 5 minutes later, I heard footsteps behind me again. I didn't turn around or speed up, but my stomach nodded. I ducked into a gas station, pretending to look at drinks while keeping an eye on the door. I watched his reflection pass by in the glass. He didn't look in, just kept walking. But he was there. I told Monica, my coworker, the next day. She offered me a ride, told me to carry pepper spray, but I said no. I didn't want to believe I had a stalker. It kept happening. Every night for a week. He never spoke. Never touched me. Never got too close. Just followed. One night, I ducked behind a delivery truck and waited until he passed. Just to get a better look. Same gray cap pulled low. Pale skin. Late 30s, maybe. Nothing about him stood out, and that made it worse. When I turned to walk back the other way, he was standing still, facing the truck, like he knew I was hiding. That's when I started running. Not a full sprint, just fast enough to create distance. I didn't hear him behind me. But when I got to my building and turned around, he was there, at the end of the block under the streetlight, just watching. It felt deliberate, like he wanted me to see him. I told my building manager. He promised to check the cameras, but didn't seem too worried. Try not to walk alone, he said, as if I had a choice. I'd changed my schedule, started leaving earlier, getting rides from Monica or calling Ubers when I could afford it. For a while, he was gone. Then last Friday, I had to close alone. Monica left early, and the Uber wait was too long. I figured one walk wouldn't hurt. I left around 11:15. 10 minutes in, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. I glanced at the reflection in a store window. He was back. I didn't stop. I didn't turn. I reached into my bag and held onto my pepper spray. I turned down a different street. He followed. I cut through a side alley that led to the back of a grocery store. Not smart, I know, but I just wanted to lose him. The alley was dark. No cars, no cameras, just the sound of my shoes. And his. I broke into a jog. Then I heard him running. I sprinted. I don't even remember how I got out of the alley. I just remember hitting the sidewalk, nearly falling, and running toward the 24-hour pharmacy at the corner. I burst inside, out of breath, heart pounding. The clerk looked up, startled. I pretended to browse for a few minutes, trying to calm my breathing. After 5 minutes, I stepped out slowly. He was standing across the street, just watching. I went back inside and called a cab. When I got home, I cried in the shower for 20 minutes. The next morning, there was a piece of paper slid under my apartment door. No envelope, just one sentence. You run fast. I like that. I called the police. They came, took a report, said they'd increase patrols in the area. But unless I had a name or he threatened me directly, there wasn't much they could do. I asked if they could check security footage. They said they'd try. That was 5 days ago. Since then, I've stayed with Monica. I haven't been home. Haven't gone to work. I even considered quitting. Then, last night, something happened that made everything worse. Monica went to pick up takeout. I was alone in her apartment for maybe 30 minutes. When she came back, there was something taped to her front door. A Polaroid photo of me standing in her kitchen window. It was taken from the alley behind her building. I hadn't told anyone I was staying here. He found me anyway. I'm sharing this because I honestly don't know who else to talk to. My friends think I'm just stressed. The cops did what they could, but I know what I experienced. And I know he's still out there, watching. Last year, around late August, I finally moved into my first solo apartment. I'd always had roommates or lived at home, so getting my own place felt like a fresh start. I'm a freelance graphic designer, nothing flashy, but steady enough that I could afford a one-bedroom just outside the city. It was quiet. The complex had maybe 12 units, mostly older tenants who kept to themselves. I liked that. I'm kind of an introvert anyway, so coming home to peace and quiet after work was a blessing. The first month was great. I settled in, decorated my place, started a little routine. I'd go for a short walk in the evenings, listen to music, stop by the corner store sometimes. I felt calm, safe, but then small things started happening. At first, I brushed them off. I'd come home and notice the blinds slightly open when I was sure I had left them closed. My toothbrush would be moved just a little, or a kitchen cabinet would be open that I didn't remember opening. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was still getting used to the new place. I even joked about it with my friend Sarah, said maybe my apartment was haunted. But deep down, I had this feeling, like I was being watched. I started double-checking the locks every night. I bought a cheap little door alarm that beeped when the door opened. I stuck a broomstick in the window track. Then one night, around 11 p.m., I was lying on the couch watching a show when I heard a soft thump, like someone had bumped into the wall behind me. My couch backed up to the hallway wall. So I paused the show and listened. Nothing. I figured it was the neighbors. But then my door handle rattled. Not hard. Just a slow, deliberate jiggle. Like someone was testing it. I froze. My heart sank. The door didn't open. It was locked, but the handle turned slowly, once, then again, and then silence. I waited 5 full minutes before I got up and looked through the peephole. No one. That was the first night I called the police. They showed up 20 minutes later, walked around the building, and found nothing. Told me it was probably a drunk neighbor or someone confused. Maybe a delivery guy. I wanted to believe that. The next day I asked my landlord if there were cameras. He said no. I asked if he'd consider installing any. He shrugged and said nothing ever happens there. After that I couldn't focus on work. Every creak made me jump. I kept the curtains closed all day and slept with the lights on. I even asked my friend Kevin to stay over a few nights. When Kevin stayed, nothing happened. Not a sound. No weird door noises. Nothing moved. I started to think maybe I had imagined the whole thing. Maybe it was just the stress of living alone for the first time. But then he left. The next day, I went to take out the trash around 10 p.m. I was wearing this red hoodie. I always wear nothing special. Just old and comfy. I walked to the dumpster, tossed the bag, and came back inside. And there was a note under my door. Plain white paper, handwritten, just 7 words. You look pretty in red tonight. I swear my legs almost gave out. I stared at the note for a solid minute, hands shaking before I called the cops again. This time, they took it more seriously. They walked around the building again, talked to the other tenants. Nobody saw anything. They said they'd file a report, told me to stay alert. That night I didn't sleep. I moved my dresser in front of the door, sat on the floor with a kitchen knife in my hand. Every shadow felt alive. Every car sound made me jump. I begged Kevin to come back. He said he couldn't, he had work early, but he promised to check in on me the next day. 3 days passed with nothing. Then I noticed something. My bedroom closet door. It was cracked open. I never leave it open, ever. It's an old habit. I can't sleep unless it's fully closed. And I remember closing it that morning. But when I got home from the grocery store, it was open just an inch. I pulled it open slowly. Looked inside. Nothing. But I still felt sick. That night I didn't sleep in my bed. I stayed on the couch, lights on, watching the front door. I thought about calling the police again, but I knew what they'd say. No evidence. No break-in. The next morning, I got ready for a shower. When I opened the bathroom cabinet, I found another note. This one was folded and taped to the inside of the cabinet door. It said, "You sleep like a baby." That's when I lost it. I left the apartment within 30 minutes. I packed a backpack, drove to Sarah's place, and told her everything. She begged me to go stay with my parents for a while. So I did. I didn't go back for 2 weeks. When I finally returned, I brought Kevin and Sarah with me. We walked through the whole place. It felt dead, cold, like someone had been there and left in a hurry. Nothing was taken, nothing broken, but the bedroom window was unlocked. I never leave it unlocked. I moved out the next day. I found a new apartment in a different town, closer to my parents, smaller, gated, with cameras. I even adopted a dog for company and protection. Things were quiet again. For a while. Then last week, something happened. I got a text from an unknown number. It just said, "You forgot your red hoodie." No emojis, no name. And the weirdest thing? I didn't bring that hoodie with me when I moved. I assumed I left it behind in the rush. But when I checked my closet in the new place, it was hanging there, clean, folded, waiting. I don't even know where to start. It still doesn't feel real. Some nights I wonder if I imagined the whole thing. But then I remember the wall, and the mattress, and that sentence he wrote. This all started about 9 months ago when I moved into a small apartment complex just outside Pittsburgh. It wasn't fancy, more like a 2-story brick building with 6 units total. My place was Unit 3A on the second floor. Rent was cheap, the area was quiet, and most of the tenants were older folks or kept to themselves. The apartment across from mine, Unit 3B, had been empty when I moved in. The landlord told me it needed work and would probably sit vacant for a while. So, for the first couple months, I had no neighbors on my floor. It was kind of nice. I'd get home from work, throw off my shoes, relax, and not worry about noise or hallway traffic. But sometime in late November, I noticed signs of life in 3B. It started with the sounds. Not music or voices, just footsteps. Very soft, almost like pacing. I'd hear them late at night when everything else was dead quiet. Then the lights started coming on. Just one window, dim yellow light, always after 10 p.m., no movement. No silhouette, just on. Then one evening when I got home from work, I saw him. I was unlocking my door, and I felt someone behind me. I turned. And there he was standing in front of 3B, mid-30s maybe, shaggy brown hair, pale skin, wearing a black hoodie and old jeans. He was staring directly at me but didn't say anything. I smiled and said, "Hey, like you do with neighbors." He just nodded once and went inside his apartment. It gave me a weird feeling. Not fear, exactly. Just discomfort. Something about his eyes. Over the next couple weeks, I started seeing him more. Sometimes in the hallway, sometimes out front, checking the mail. He never spoke. Never smiled. He always wore that same black hoodie. I never caught his name. I figured he was just socially awkward or going through something. I've had weird neighbors before. I didn't think too much of it. Then strange things started happening. One night I came home to find a sticky note on my front door. Just a smiley face drawn in pen. No message. I assumed it was a joke, maybe one of the kids from downstairs, and tossed it. The next day I found another note. This one was stuck to the hallway wall between my door and his. It said, "You make noise when you sleep." That freaked me out a little. I hadn't had anyone over. I live alone. The idea that he could hear me sleeping, breathing, moving was unsettling. That weekend, I decided to stay at my boyfriend's place. I didn't tell him about the note. Just said I wanted to hang out more. When I got back Sunday afternoon, I noticed something strange. My welcome mat was flipped. It sounds like nothing, I know, but I always straighten it before I leave. I'm picky like that. I knelt to fix it, and that's when I saw it. A small Polaroid photo tucked underneath. It was a photo of me asleep, in my bed, taken from the doorway. I could see my face clearly, turned toward the wall and the clock on my nightstand. The timestamp showed 3:41 a.m. I nearly dropped it. I ran into my apartment, locked every bolt, and called the police immediately. They showed up pretty fast, took my statement, and searched the building. They knocked on 3B. No answer. They asked the landlord if the unit was officially rented. He looked confused and said the place was still under renovation. The system showed it as vacant. No lease, no tenant. That didn't make sense. I told them I'd seen the man, that he lived there. The lights, the footsteps, everything. But when the landlord unlocked 3B and let us in, I froze. It was empty. No furniture. No dishes. No signs of anyone living there. Except one thing. An old, thin mattress was on the floor in the bedroom. Nothing else. No sheets, no pillows. Just a mattress and something written on the wall in permanent marker. "I hear you." The cops took pictures, asked more questions. But in the end, they didn't find fingerprints. No sign of forced entry into my unit. No cameras on the property. Without proof of identity, they couldn't arrest anyone. I packed a bag and left that night. I stayed with my sister for a few days. I was jumpy, barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that Polaroid. The angle. The way it was taken. He had been in my apartment. I went back only once to grab the rest of my things. I hired a moving company. Kept it daylight. Didn't go alone. Before I left for good, I stepped into the hallway one last time and looked at 3B. The door was open. Wide open. No one had touched it. The landlord had changed the lock and promised to keep it secured. But it was just open. I didn't go in. I couldn't. I just left. 3 months passed. I moved into a new apartment across town. It's smaller but newer. Gated complex. Security cameras at every corner. I finally started sleeping again. Until last week. I went to get the mail, and there was an envelope with no stamp, no address, just my name in messy handwriting. Inside was a single Polaroid. Me. Standing at my new mailbox. Taken from across the street.